Welcome into a Thirsty Pups podcast brought to you by Butter Sports. My name is Shay. I'm coming to you after the Timberwolves avoid a sweep here. We're going to be talking a little bit about this Dallas series and if it's possible for the Timberwolves to break another NBA record here. Going down 0-3, we've seen 155 teams go down 0-3. We've seen 0 teams overcome that. So, can the Timberwolves do that? We'll see. We'll get into some of it. We're going to talk a little bit about the Wolves. But first, for all my diehard fans out there that have, been there, I've seen some of you 35 years, 20 years, whatever it may be. I think we enjoy this win. We've waited 20 years for another Western Conference Finals win. So don't let anything ruin that. Enjoy this moment. Enjoy this win. However this series turns out, it's a good sign of building blocks for the future. And I think it's something that we can be excited about is we're going to have this young core locked in for a while. So it's good building block moving forward. But diving into this Dallas series, this is really about the Timberwolves being themselves. I think they're the better and deeper team. I don't think this really has to do with anything that Dallas does. I think it's just us showing the league who we really are. We've done it all year. It's unfortunate that we slid for those 3 games. We've shown that we bounce back in game 4. We're going to see what happens game 5 at home. We've lost, I believe, 5 of the last 6 games at home. But really, I think this series is more so about the Timberwolves being the Timberwolves than anything that Dallas does to us. Like I said, I think we're the better team. I think we're the deeper team. And I think that can carry us through the rest of the series to at the very least, make it interesting. So, in the second half, it was good to see Cat get his mojo back. It's up to him to really defend his legacy at this point. I know there's a lot of Cat haters out there. There's a lot of Cat trade talks out there. I'm just not going to speak negatively on it. Cat's been here for a long time. He's been a loyal part of this Timberwolves team. And after that Denver series, he's a major reason why we're in this Western Conference Finals to begin with. So, like I said, it's up for Cat to defend his legacy here. I'm not going to sit here and try and defend it for him. But I did like to see him get his confidence back in the second half. I hope that unleashes Cat to let him purr. That's so corny. But to let him purr for the rest of this series and see if we can make it interesting. Game 5 at home, if we could take that and go into game 6. And try and steal one at Dallas. And then, anything can happen in game 7, which most exciting part of sports is reaching that game 7. So we got to take care of business before that. But, I think a missing piece to this team for a long time was that Mike Conley veteran presence. I mean, he does things. He doesn't make a lot of bad decisions on the court. Part of that's being around the game for 17 years. But even when you watched him at Ohio State in college, he was always making the right play, making the right reads, and staying composed even as an 18, 19-year-old in college. So it's who he's always been. He's such a great guy. He's such a good locker room presence. I think he's been a good person to have in Ant's ear. Like I said, he just makes the right plays. And you can really see right now the passion coming out of him in this series that he really wants this. He's been close a couple times with Memphis. They had their shortcomings with Utah. He wants to make it to the finals. He knows that his time is running short. Yes, he has a 2-year extension, but how much longer is he going to be a major piece of the rotation once he gets to 37, 38? We'll see. So this might be, one of his last opportunities to be a major part of the rotation, a major impact, and not just a veteran bench influence. I mean, he is, I believe, 36 right now. But like Ant said, you see him getting downhill, and that's really opening up some things on offense where Ant doesn't always have to be the facilitator then. That's why I think Mike Conley is such an important piece. When that double comes, get in that swing over to Mike and let him be a creator, whether it's off the pick and roll by himself, get into his floater game. But he was getting all the way to the rim. I think with Lively out, that basket's been a little bit more open. I think we saw that in game 4. Something that a lot of people had some hate for in the Denver series was getting Kyle Anderson out of there. Slow-Mo had his struggles in the Denver series, which is interesting because during the regular season, it seemed like he was a key factor in guarding Jokic and keeping us in those regular season games, whether we were hurt or not. But I think Slow-Mo's been a really good fit for this series. His decision making has been great. He's a guy that does a lot of things that aren't going to stand out on the stat sheet. But as you watch the game play out, you can see his effect on winning. He's getting to his mid-rangers. He's being a little bit more decisive. Somehow we've given him some grenades at the end of the shot clock, and I don't expect Kyle to have to deal with that. You know, you can't give Slow-Mo the ball with 3 seconds left out on the three-point line and hope that something is going to go well. So if we could avoid that situation with him, that'd be great. But I would like to see the Timberwolves maybe try some smaller lineups with either Nas or Cat at the 5 and Slow-Mo at the 4. But having Nas or Cat at the 5 where they can still have that perimeter jump shot and be a threat compared to Rudy at the 5. I think maybe run a little smaller lineup. McDaniels at the 3, Ant at the 2, and Conley at the 1, just to see how that affects Dallas. It might be a little too late in the series to really start getting creative with that stuff, but that would be a nice lineup that I would like to see, and maybe playing a little bit more small ball to match up with Dallas a little bit better. We have such a versatile and deep team. I think there's some things that we need to try. We still haven't seen the 3 big man lineup in the playoffs, I don't believe, but I don't think we're going to use that at this point. I think we're going to stick to a lot more of what we've been doing. And talking about big guys, I think the Rudy flip-flop hate is insane. I think people got to pick a side here. I think either you hate him or you love him, but people are so back and forth on this guy. It's unbelievable to watch the mass media, to get on social media and see the back and forth between Rudy. But for me, Rudy's had a major impact on getting us further than what we've been in 20 years. So I'm on Rudy's side. All right. So you can hate that. You can hate that take. You can love that take. I'm just going to be honest about the impact of winning. Rudy's gotten us a lot further than what we've been in a long time. A lot of people hated the trade. A lot of people hated giving up the assets, but we wouldn't be here right now if it wasn't for Rudy. We wouldn't have had the regular season we would have had if it wasn't for Rudy. So I'm appreciative of his effort. I mean, this is a guy who plays very hard every night. This guy sets the physical tone on the defense and the offensive side. And I mean, like I said, he's our tone setter. So I like Rudy. I'm not going to flip back and forth on him. I've been a Rudy stan since he got here. People hated it, and we're at where we're at. So, you know, you can either listen to me or you can't. But my eyes and my basketball knowledge tell me that Rudy helps us win games, and that's the important thing. Another player that I think started to hit some shots and get his mojo and his confidence back. You don't know if his shoulder is really hurting him or not right now, but Nickeil Alexander-Walker is a key piece to this team. He is such a key piece to our depth off the bench on both the offensive and the defensive side that we need him to look like the Nah that we saw all regular season. He did go through some inconsistencies. I believe he's only 25. He doesn't have a whole lot of playoff experience. But if we want to come out of this series, Nickeil's got to be a big factor in it. And when those bench minutes come up, he's got to be a plus in that plus-minus category, and he's got to do some of the heavy lifting of guarding their superstars of Kyrie and Luka. And, you know, moving to another bench piece, obviously the 6th man of the year, Naz Reid. I think Naz Reid's been Naz Reid, and there's not really much you need to say about it. I hope he gets a couple more minutes than what he's been getting because he's been truly effective in this series. But if Cat starts to get cooking, then, you know, I don't mind the balance of those two. But, I mean, I think we got to find a way to get Naz in the court more. I'm watching this guy pick up Luka at half court when he gets switched onto him. He's moving his feet. I mean, Naz is just the transformation of Naz has been truly incredible, and I hope he gets more minutes, and I hope he gets to show us a little bit more in this series what Naz is made out of, because the national televised games and the exposure that he's getting, there is no hate for him being the 6th man of the year, and there is no snub for him being the 6th man of the year, and I think people understand that. I think the biggest X factor of this Timberwolves team is Jaden McDaniels. I think to tell us how far this team is going to be lays on his shoulders, which is probably crazy to say. He's been so good on defense. I'm just waiting to see him be confident on offense. I watched him in the offseason at a Pro-Am in Seattle, drop 52, doing cross, in and out, hesitation, pull-up threes. If he could play the NBA game with that type of confidence, maybe not that style, but that type of confidence on offense and the same type of confidence that he carries on defense as an offensive player, he is going to be a problem for the NBA. I think next year is when he makes that leap that we wanted this year into that offensive role that we know that he can be and that consistency a little bit more from the perimeter shooting. I just want to see him be confident. I don't care if he misses shots right now. I just want to see the confidence in him, going into these next couple games and going into next season, because this series, wherever it ends up, if we make it to the finals going into next year, I think the key to how far this team can ever go is going to lay on the development of Jaden McDaniels. And you can bookmark this, you can come back to this, but I think that's just the truth of this team, and him coming into a star role on which I know he can be, and he's got the raw potential to do that. I think it's just going to take a little bit more confidence on the offensive end to get there to play that style of ball. But I believe he's going to get there, and I believe it is going to be some issues for people guarding him and being guarded by him. So I can't wait to see the development of McDaniels. I think he's grown up in front of our eyes in the last two series here. And he's had some really good games. And now if we can lock in some of that consistency moving forward, you're just going to love to see that out of him. And he plays so hard. He's been keeping a little bit more of a level head, so you can see the maturity. But, speaking of maturity, Ant at 22 looks like he can be our closer. And it is probably scary to rely on a 22-year-old to be your closer, but he's finally getting back to that killer mid-range game that he has, and that is unstoppable. I don't know why he ever went away from those bank shots from his mid-range game. He was passing up a lot of those shots. We need him to be a threat. And with how much they're doubling him and packing in that paint, he's going to have to utilize that mid-range game. And I think we saw that in Game 4, and he took advantage of that. So I think moving forward, I want to see him at that same volume shooting. He dang near had a triple-double. He was assist away. What's crazy is he had 0 assists in the first half. He ended up with 9. And so he was very close to a triple-double, which is an incredible game for a 22-year-old in that stage when you're trying not to get swept and you're going against Kyrie and Luka. You do see the immaturity and the youthful mistakes sometimes, not getting a foul call or a bad turnover. He really burns energy, all of a sudden steal chasing and playing some reckless defense. And sometimes he picks up a foul on the other end, which we just can't have. We can't have him burning energy or using that immaturity to all of a sudden burn energy or get a bad foul. We need him on the offensive end. We need him level-headed. But, he's going to, a fine-tuned Anthony Edwards, when he gets into his 23, 24, 25-year-old season, I don't know if there's going to be a better player in the league at that point. And I am dead serious about that. The way that he is playing at 2 years old is absolutely incredible. It's been a pleasure to watch his development. It is a thing of beauty, and I'm appreciating every second of it as a basketball head. I'm not going to take it for granted. I am so glad that he is on our team, because if he was on another team in the Western Conference, I'd be having nightmares, and the Timberwolves would be still at the bottom of the league. His leadership also as a 22-year-old, and the way that he carries himself with his confidence, I think is so contagious for the rest of this team, and really carries them through a lot of the tough times and gets us to bounce back. So last thing, it is incredibly hard to watch Luka's style of play. Don't get me wrong. He is an amazing talent and an amazing player. But the crying and the flopping, I'm glad that the Timberwolves play ethical basketball, and I don't care if we win or lose. It's just much more enjoyable to know that we went down without having to reside to some of these tactics. And, at the end of the day, I'm sure Dallas will be more excited if they get a ring out of someone flopping than playing ethical basketball, but not for me. I run a high integrity program here, and I was a high integrity basketball player. So I don't like having room in the game to watch that or have that be an example to the youth on how to play basketball or have that be rewarded. So I don't really want to talk about the refs, but it would just be nice to have an ethical and fairly called game. So if we could have that, that would be great. But I'm not much of a ref complainer, and it is what it is. They're going to make their calls. We either got to battle through it or, just keep pushing. So I think we can get back in this. We got the last win. I think we can push ourselves back in this series. Like I said earlier, we've lost 5 of the last 6 at home. I think we're due for a home court advantage win. If we can get this to 3-2, take it to Dallas, I think at that point anything can happen. It's 2 games. You got to focus on one game at a time, though. As someone who comes from an athletic background and played college basketball, you can't look ahead to any games. I really don't like that this team is talking to the media about, hey, we're going to do something, that breaks history and you guys are going to have a great story to tell. Right now, I'm focused on game 5. Every little bit of focus should be on game 5. It shouldn't be on pushing this to game 7. It is on game 5. It is a survive and advance type mentality, just like March Madness. And so I think every little bit of focus, any talk to any type of media is, hey, we're focused on game 5. We don't care what the record is. We're focused on, or what the series is at. We are focused on winning game 5, and that is it. I think that this team can do it. I think we are the better team. It is scary that we're going to have to beat Kyrie and Luka for another 3 games. I think it's going to be a huge mountain to climb. But every time you want to count the Wolves out, they give you a reason to have some hope again. And I think that is truly Minnesota sports sometimes. But I think they can do it. I'm going to be riding with them. I've watched them have a 16-win season. When we're down 0-3, I'm going to watch the game. When we're down 1-3 in this series, I'm going to watch the game. And as we go through the rest of this series, I'm going to be continuing to watch and support this team. And I hope all my other diehard Timberwolves fans out there are doing the same thing. So I would love to see this go to game 7, and anything can happen at that point. But until then, we're going to take this one game at a time. So after game 5, like and subscribe, follow, make sure you're with Butter Sports. I'm going to be covering this series a little bit more in depth as we go. And I'm hoping that this series goes a little further so I can talk a little bit more about what's going on with the players in this series. But make sure to subscribe. It helps me a lot. But for now, that's it from Butter Sports and Thirsty Pups. And we'll see you guys in a couple days here.